I'm reading again this morning from Exodus 13:17 through 22 as we continue our sermon series, the fourth session of it, Walking into the Wilderness. When Pharaoh let the people go, God did not lead them by the land of the Philistines, although that was nearer. For God thought, if the people face war, they may change their minds and return to Egypt. So God led the people by the roundabout way of the wilderness toward the Red Sea. The Israelites went up out of the land of Egypt prepared for the battle, and Moses took with him the bones of Joseph, who had required a solemn oath of the Israelites, saying, God will surely take notice of you, and then you must carry my bones with you from here. They set out and camped at Etham on the edge of the wilderness. The Lord went in front of them in a pillar of cloud by day to lead them along the way, and a pillar of fire by night to give them light, so that they might travel by day and by night. Neither the pillar of the cloud by day nor the pillar of fire by night left its place in front of the people. We're into our fourth week of the sermon series leading us toward Holy Week, entitled Walking into the Wilderness. You may remember that in the three previous sermons we've identified that the church, not just our church, but all churches, are having the wilderness experience. We said we're not naive. We know that attendance is down, churches are being closed, tithing has declined, and that young people seem to want to stay away. Also, we said we know what church looks like, how it operates, how it's experienced, how it envisions a future in this changing environment. We discovered from the Exodus story that even in the wilderness, God carries a pillar of light before us. God's always present. God's always leading. We have talked about that even in the wilderness, there is purpose. We have talked about what we will take with us on our journey for our wilderness walk. We understand that life in a wilderness is full of twists and turns where only faith can act as our compass. And finally, I suggested that maybe, just maybe, God has brought us to this place where we might hear God's call and experience God's presence. So come along with me as we continue this uncertain journey of walking into the wilderness. I'm wondering, have any of you ever went on a journey with a small child? Yeah? Then you will get this one. Inevitably, when you journey with small children, there's one question that sooner or later you're going to have to face. The kids will ask it, and they will ask it soon, and they will ask it often. They will ask it with a kind of whining, obstinate passion. They will ask it even though you warn them you never want to hear it again. They will ask as if it was a legal obligation to do so. It will irritate you, as it will irritate you as much as if someone's scraping their fingernails on a blackboard. What is it? I bet you already guessed. Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? The Bible often pictures life as a pilgrimage, our life journey. Often we feel like the children of Israel traveling through the wilderness, heading for the promised land, what promises to be heaven on earth. Are we there yet? Sometimes life just seems like one wilderness way after another. Sometimes it's God's wilderness way. God was about to lead Israel out of captivity in Egypt. There was a well-traveled highway, a major trade route called the Via Maris. It ran straight from Egypt to Palestine. Now, it was heavily guarded by the Egyptian forts to protect against any possible invading armies, and it ran through Philistine territory, but it was less than 200 miles. It would have taken Israel about 10 days to make that journey. Sounds simple enough to me, yet instead God had a roundabout way in mind. He took Israel the long way. God then led them in the direction of the Red Sea instead. 400 years dawn. Imagine the whole nation gathering, the day they've been waiting for. They're setting out their exciting journey home. No maps, no GPSs, no guides. They've got something much better. A pillar of cloud and fire. God will lead them. They are already in battle formation. The men are in the front in case of ambush. In the rear, the more vulnerable, grandpas with walking canes and women trying to keep their kids in line. Even the herds of cattle and sheep sense the excitement in the air. The pillar of fire and the clouds start to move. But hey, it's going the wrong way. The promised land is to the north, and God is going south. He's taking us through a wilderness. What's with that? Sometimes God does the same in our life. Maybe you've been there. You have the dream job and suddenly your corporation downsizes. Or worse, it completely closes doors and you're left outside looking in. Or you find the love of your life and then one day you realize they've been having an affair and your marriage circles in a downward spiral. Or you run, walk, do aerobics, and keep every active thing you can do, and then one day you wake up with a lump in your breast and your world turns upside down. Or your church seems healthy and a great place to fellowship, and then one day you notice fewer and fewer people in the pews, and bills become increasingly hard to pay, and you wonder if you'll have to close your doors. Or the economy is booming and all seems right in life, and then one day a worldwide plague appears. Or there are 100 other things that cause your life to be altered dramatically. It seems that life just never turns out the way you expected. Are we there yet? Why all the detours? With Israel, God said, if they take the Philistine interstate, take that easy way, they'll suddenly run headfirst into a major conflict, and they might turn tail and run back to Egypt. If life was too easy, if we never had a setback and had smooth sailing most of our lives, then something like cancer or divorce or financial trouble or a plague ambushes us, we might not be prepared. Remember as a kid learning to ride a bike? At first, your dad and mom ran behind you holding the bicycle. Then they'd let go. And oftentimes you fell down. God wants us to grow up, to learn to overcome obstacles in lives without falling away, but all in due time. Are we there yet? So God led Israel on a roundabout way through the desert toward the Red Sea. Once again, God had God's reasons. He even told Israel to reverse course and make camp on a dead-end road up against the Red Sea. It led Pharaoh to think, they're lost and confused. I'll hunt them down and take them captive again. And God said, I will use Pharaoh as an army to put my glory on display before all of Egypt. Pharaoh took the bait and came charging. Israel chickened out and complained, God, weren't the cemeteries big enough in Egypt that you took us to the desert to die? We would have been better off back in slavery. And God said, wait and see. Are we there yet? The pillar of cloud and the fire moved between the Egyptian army and Israel like a shield. God sent a powerful wind. It pushed the seawater back. It opened a land bridge to safety. Families ran forward as babies cried. Children splashed through the puddles. Cattle and sheep bleated. The whole congregation got through to the other side. And when the Egyptians tried to follow, the wheels of their chariots stuck in the mud. Seaweed wrapped around their ankles like hands holding them back. Then with a roar like Niagara Falls, the wall of water collapsed over them. Not one enemy survived. Israel stood watching. There was no doubt left about the power and the glory of God. God's purposes are always bigger than Israel. God's purposes are always bigger than us. When we suffer setbacks, we get lost and confused. For Israel, God's reminder of his great faithfulness took a strange form, a coffin. The Bible tells us they took the mummified body of Joseph along with them. Why? Before he died some 400 years ago, Joseph had made the Israelites swear an oath. He said, God will surely come to your aid, then you must carry my bones home to my final rest in the promised land. To Joseph, death was just the final detour, even though it took 400 years. When the time came, he didn't want to be left behind. Even in death, Joseph's last will and testament made it clear he wanted to go home with God. Remember Joseph? The gift of the coat of many colors? A sign he wouldn't likely inherit his dad's estate? Then his bad news brothers sold him into slavery in Egypt. Joseph earned a big promotion to manager only to suffer another setback. His boss's wife tried to seduce him, but when he said no, she acted like he tried to rape her. He got sent to prison for what? Being obedient to God. Like Christ, Joseph winds up between two prisoners. He predicts the salvation of one and the death of the other. He asks the survivor, remember me. But when the guy is restored to Pharaoh's kingdom, Joseph is forgotten. Finally, Joseph winds up as the commander-in-chief of all of Egypt. His life was full of detours. God had a purpose in all that was so much bigger than just Joseph, the saving of many lives from a worldwide famine. Are we there yet? You see, we tend to focus in on the moment. All we hear are words like, well, you didn't get the promotion, or you may have to have surgery, or the COVID-19 virus is spreading like wildflowers. Instead, we ought to say to ourselves, God works for good in all things. This is just a wilderness way. How is God going to use this in my life? We need to look at the big picture. Like Joseph did, like his father Jacob and his grandfather Isaac and his forefather in the faith Abraham before them. The New Testament tells us they didn't focus on his life as the end-all and be-all. They saw they were just transients in this world. They had their hope set on a better country, a heavenly one. Are we there yet? No, but it's coming. We have more than a coffin to show for it. We have a cross and an empty tomb. So where do we go from here? Throughout the Bible, God sums it up in two words. Follow me. For Israel, God led them through the wilderness by the means of the pillar of cloud by day and fire by night. It's easy when everything is going right. When prayers get answered and problems go away. If you get straight A's in school, when your kids' teeth are straight, or the boss likes you. It gets a lot tougher when your life suddenly heads south and you find yourself in the desert. Maybe you're starting to date and the person looks like Angelina Jolie or Brad Pitt, but turns out to be a terrible person. How can it be wrong when it feels so right? Or maybe your marriage goes through a dry spell, or you lose your job and bill collectors begin to circle like vultures, or if your health breaks down. Will you continue to keep the faith? To follow God's roadmap in the Bible, even if the way seems so uncertain? Remember how Jesus walked the Via Dolorosa, the road of suffering, in our shoes. Talk about a roundabout way. Already as a baby, Jesus' parent had to flee to King Herod, to of all places, Egypt. His whole life was a series of setbacks, rejected by religious leaders, misunderstood by his mother and brothers, deserted by his closest followers, staggering under the weight of a cross. And what did Jesus say? Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Into your hands I commit my life. How else are we going to find our way in the world? It's like a man who was following a guide when they came to the desert. The guide panicked. What do we do now? Where's the road? The guide replied, I am the road. And in fact, Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Follow me. When you leave this service here today and go back to your living room or kitchen or out to your lot to get your car, I want you to look for Jesus. You too will face unexpected wildernesses in your life journey, and you will never be more aware of how close you can get to Christ in those moments. He may take you on a wilderness way, and you may ask once more, are we there yet? We're close, but his wilderness way may take us some time and effort and patience, but God will get us home to the promised land. Let me end with a story that I heard Diana Butler Bass share about St. Cuthbert, a Celtic priest. Cuthbert lived during a time of great plague. And the story goes like this. Cuthbert had fallen ill with the disease. Outside his living quarter, other monks were praying for him to be healed as he laid in bed. Finally, one of the monks entered and asked him why he was laying in bed while they were praying for his healing. And he responded, why indeed? Then he got up and walked to a chair where he spent the rest of his time recuperating from the plague. Now, unfortunately, while he recovered from the plague, he was never the same. He felt ill often and walked with a limp the remainder of his life. So you may be asking, why am I telling you this story? I'm telling you this story because when we walk into the wilderness, we will never be the same as we were before. We may be limping, perhaps for the rest of our lives, but we will come out the other end. Are we there yet? Perhaps not. But as we walk into the wilderness beyond, God will be walking alongside us. And you, the people of God, will be walking alongside others as they journey into the wilderness as well. This is the word of God for the people of God. Praise be to God.